Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Ayşe Süberker. It was a bold proposal that, if implemented, could change how energy is generated and transported across vast swaths of Asia. Turkey's Energy Minister Alparslan Bayraktar over the weekend proposed establishing a joint mega grid with the Shanghai Co-operation Organization. The SCO, a regional security group led by Russia and China, recently held an energy conference in Astana as uncertainty grows over future energy supplies disrupted by the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. Turkey's proposal would establish a working group to integrate the electricity infrastructure of SCO members. Having set ambitious decarbonisation goals, Bayraktar says the group could work together with Türkiye to usher in a well-integrated grid, which could power the world's growing fleet of electric vehicles. Formed in 2001, the SCO comprises more than 40% of the world's population, a quarter of its land and GDP. Türkiye joined the Bloc as a dialogue partner in 2012 and has hinted it wants to expand cooperation. But many have called the SCO a serious challenger to Western-led institutions like NATO, of which Türkiye is also a member. And for more on the cooperation opportunities between Türkiye and the SCO, joining me now from Amsterdam is Manas Çavla. He is the CEO of London Politica, a political risk consultancy in the UK. And from Istanbul, Mehmet Çelik is the editorial coordinator at Daily Sabah. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Mehmet, Türkiye has called for the establishment of the technical level working group to work on a mega grid with SCO member states. What interest does Türkiye have in proposing this energy transition project?
Well, as you know, Türkiye is a very energy dependent country, and due to this nearly 70% energy dependency, it needs to have some solid security when it comes to energy supply chains. In addition to these two things, Türkiye is also one of the countries that dealing with the climate change and has the aim of reaching net zero emissions by 2023. So it's at work right now to diversify its energy resources and heavily invest in renewables, be it solar, wind, or other energy sources that are part of the renewables, in addition to nuclear plants that it has been building. So integrating with the SCO, Türkiye plans to be part of that new infrastructure building and investment in the renewables. So to minimize that dependency on particularly oil and gas, to diversify its energy resources, but also to establish a solid infrastructure that can serve for the future. Basically, if we were to summarize it with one word, it is an attempt to invest in the future of energy. This is why Turkey is planning to diversify its resources, to strengthen its infrastructure for that future.
So, Manas, how do you think SCO members will be approaching to Turkey's offer? I mean, is it also in their interest?
Well, the SCO is the largest regional organization out there. It covers about 80% of the Eurasian landmass, 40% of the world population, which means that it has so many diverse perspectives. And because of that, in the recent sort of last 5 to 10 years, getting significant achievements has been really difficult. In that sort of environment, energy cooperation is a rare mutual interest, and it aligns well with the global momentum towards decarbonization, towards net zero. The plan that Turkey's put forward, it predicts would add about 60 gigawatts of solar and wind in the next 12 years, in line with its national strategy without compromising energy security. All the countries in Central Asia, China and Russia, obviously also have an interest in speeding up the transition towards renewables. And this would make the technicalities of that a lot easier.
So, Mehmet, is it an easy job to build such a grid? I mean, what are the challenges in integrating the electricity infrastructure of SCO members? And what kind of a role should Türkiye play in materializing this?
Well, in addition to the technical difficulties that could perhaps emerge when it comes to infrastructure, integration of the electricity resources, etc., I think more so there will be especially on Turkish side, there will be geopolitical difficulties. As you know, Turkey is part of NATO, and on the other side, it is trying to balance between the two power blocks, between Russia, China on the one side and the Euro-Atlantic side on the other. So the geopolitics, more so than the actual technical difficulties that it could perhaps face, I think will be a challenge for Turkey to balance that power relation between the Euro-Atlantic bloc and the SCO members. Otherwise, the know-how is there, the willingness is there, the technical difficulties, they could perhaps work on the integration of different resources and establish, in a way, an energy hub surrounding Turkey's infrastructure, and ultimately, perhaps in the future, also export that energy that is established through this integration. However, aside from the technical difficulties, I think the geopolitical difficulties given Turkey's NATO membership could perhaps play a bigger role in materializing this power, the mega grid that the energy minister has been talking about.
So, Manas, speaking of geopolitical difficulties, there are already other proposals in place to make new energy and transport links across Asia. So does Turkey, which lies in the middle corridor, have advantages compared to other transport routes being made by Russia and Iran?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, first of all, Turkey has a geographical advantage. It bridges the East and the West. But I think also where it lies politically matters most. Russia and Iran are effectively considered pariah states by most of the Western world. They have no lines of credit. They can't, mutually interact with the Western financial system. That's not the case for Turkey, especially because Turkey has shown credibly in the past that it can play the role of mediator. Chief example of that is how it brokered the Black Sea Grain Initiative between Ukraine and Russia. So Turkey could play a really sort of strategic role in bringing these two sides together, both of whose interests sort of coalesce in the middle in terms of achieving decarbonization through these expedited technical solutions.
So, Mehmet, you've mentioned Turkey as a NATO member, and you said that might cause some challenges. But what about Russia? Would such a project make the Northern Corridor less effective, and Russia would be okay with that?
I mean, Russia is part of the SCO, and when this is the case, I think Turkey's relationship with Russia has always been a very pragmatic one, especially in the past decade. And so I think they will be able to work that out, if anything. But diversifying the energy cooperation will serve the benefit of both Russia and Turkey. So I don't see that to be a big friction point between Turkey and Russia.
So, Manas, if Turkey were to successfully build a mega grid with the SCO, how would this affect the global energy infrastructure as well as the energy transition?
I mean, these megagrids could support the global energy transition by smoothing local fluctuations of wind energy and solar energy. And in this context, they're considered a key technology to mitigate global warming. Effectively, they subsidize the cost of investing in what are still very expensive technologies. But beyond that, it could also have ramifications for Europe, not directly because Europe isn't a member of the SCO, but it would spur Europe to become a little bit more competitive and more innovative in this region as it sees its other sort of regional partners, going much further ahead, especially as similar plans in Europe 5, 10, 15 years ago by, sort of SoftBank and others haven't seen the light of day. They failed. So it could have ramifications all across the world.
But if materialized, wouldn't that boost also Europe's energy security?
In a way, but it's more indirectly, because again, European energy security isn't as dependent on Turkey specifically, and much less so on the Central Asian states. A lot of that post the Ukraine conflict has been cut off anyway.
So, Mehmet, is this another sign that Turkey is intensifying its efforts to diversify its relations with countries in the wider region?
Well, I think definitely so. When we look at the Turkey's relationship with NATO, it is one that is very security based and has to do with a lot of geopolitics. When we look at the SCO, on the other hand, Turkey's aspiration to be integrated into that bloc is more economic rather than anything to do with security, for the lack of a better word. So it wants to diversify its economic relations and dependency with getting closer to the SCO, or let's say the BRICS type of blocks. But on the other hand, it shouldn't be translated as an axis shift or to give up NATO and move on with something new. I think it is trying to balance that, geopolitical position of Türkiye by playing in different realms with different parts of a regional establishment. So it's getting closer to SCO is part of that economic diversification, but of course it has geopolitical and political ramifications, and it will have implications as well.
So Manas, what are your thoughts on that? As Mehmet mentioned, many have called the SCO a serious potential rival to NATO. How would the alliance view one of its members, which is Turkey, forging more cooperation with this Chinese and Russian-led bloc?
Well, I mean, I think the SCO is a very interesting organization in one way, in that it brings together such a diverse set of stakeholders. But at the same time, if you look at the actual achievements, the actual political, economic achievements of this regional bloc, I mean, they don't even come close to Western-led institutions. There's no real sort of security guarantees as part of the SCO. It functions more as a platform for dialogue. There's very few major infrastructure projects. There were plans to build a development bank that didn't really go ahead as many had sort of hoped for it to. So again, this is for now a small step, but could potentially lead to a much broader set of regional partnerships, not just in electricity and grid generation, but also in developing Türkiye as a sort of local gas hub, and could foster more deeper political cooperation between these countries. But as my colleague Mehmet said, fundamentally the SCO now is more about economic alliances than security ones.
So, but Manas, although not a former military alliance like NATO, what kind of a role does SCO play in preserving peace and security of the region? Because we know some member states launch from time to time some joint operations against terrorism and smuggling and so on.
You're completely right about that. And some of these joint operations on terrorism were very successful. Largely, they were concentrated about sort of 5 to 7 years ago, and there's been fewer of them in the sort of more recent history. But fundamentally, if you look at this politically, the SCO is a key institution in the Chinese and the Russian strategic push towards a multipolar world. The SCO does not place, political conditionality and exclusivity agreements, so to say, on some of its regional partners. It's pushing and positioning itself as an alternative to a more Western-dominated international forum, such as NATO, such as the European Union, and to some degree even the United Nations, which is also why, related to this, economic cooperation so far in the SCO has been limited.
Yes.
Largely because Beijing's proposals have been met with a lot of resistance from Moscow, which harbors concerns about potential Chinese financial dominance.
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.